sexy and gorgeous soul. Welcome to Practice Intimacy. This is the place to be to learn all about love, sex, and how to have the best relationships you possibly can. My name is Jami Lynn. I'm a marriage and family therapist. And what I want to talk to you about today is practice. There is a reason why I love practices, things that you intentionally do on a consistent basis in order to change your brain. So that's what we're going to get into today. And really what I want to cover is that there's 4 different levels of practicing something that you move through in order to change something in your life. And it could be anything. So you could want to change the way you speak to your partner. You could want to change the way that you hold physical or psychological boundaries inside yourself. You might want to change the relationship to your body. You might want to change the way that you have sex so that you're more interested in pleasure and sensation rather than orgasm. Like, there's so many different things you might want to change. And what makes it challenging to do that in the first place is that our brains do not like to learn. They don't actually like to learn. Anytime we have to change behavior, learn a new behavior, change an internal pattern, it is calorically expensive. It is actually really energy consuming to change habits and also to just change your state of being. Like, it takes a lot of energy to do that. And so your brain does not often want to. Given the choice, it's going to default to what you've always done. It's going to go back to what is often called like the default mode network. So whatever your brain is used to doing in general in life, it's going to default to that because that's what is normal for it. And so there's 4 different levels that I want to share with you and one idea that's going to help you along the way. Okay? So I'm going to do the 4 levels first, then I'll share the idea that's going to help you along the way if there's something in your life that you're wanting to change. If you're wanting to become less emotionally reactive, if you're wanting to again, like shift to loving your body or speaking to yourself and your mind in a really kind way, or I don't know, complimenting your partner and learning how to give them love language in the way that they enjoy, touch, words of affirmation, gifts, whatever the thing may be. If there's a change you want to make and you'd like to make it a habit, these are the steps through it, okay? I learned these steps from Dan Siegel. He's a neuroscientist and a child psychologist. Is he a child psychologist? He's a psychologist. I know he works with children some. I think he also works with couples. He is one of my favorite people out there teaching about how to use neuroscience clinically, so with counseling. And my favorite book of his is called Mindsight. Although if you have children, I also have 2 other favorite books of his. One is for young kids. It's called The Whole Brain Child. And then the other book is called Brainstorm, and that's for teenagers. So go find Dan Siegel. He is amazing. But this idea I'm going to share with you is the amount of time it takes to incorporate a new practice in your life in order to change your brain. You might hear a train going by. I just heard it. We'll see. The very first step is skill. You learn a new skill. So for today, the example I'm going to use is a psychological boundary. You learn the skill of a psychological boundary, which is a boundary that you picture around yourself, and it moves through the world with you, and it does 2 things. It does discernment, and it does respect. The discernment piece says, is what, hold on, I'm going to change the way I phrase that, is this information and energy that's coming at me true? And is it about me? And if either answer is no, you keep it on the outside. And then the respect piece knows that it is respectful and kind to let other people have their feelings, okay? And so my psychological boundary, it's bright gold, it's got shoots of gold lightning through it. I move through the world with this boundary, and if somebody says something or does something in my direction, is there an example I can use? Okay, I thought of one. If somebody were to say to me, you should eat healthier, I'm going to stop that on the outside of my psychological boundary, and I'm going to go, is that true? Is that true that I should eat healthier? I actually think I eat pretty healthy. I don't think that it's true that I need to eat differently than I'm currently eating. Is it about me? This person saying you should eat healthier, is that actually about me? No, it is not. It is about them and whatever's going on inside of them around food and fear and judgment. And so, both answers are no. Honestly, if either answer is no, keep it on the outside. And then the respectful and kind thing to do would be to allow that person to have their feelings. I don't need to convince them otherwise. I don't need to argue with them. They can think that I eat unhealthy. Have your feelings, have your thoughts. They are different than mine. Psychological boundary. So if I learned that skill, like you just learned it, then what I would do in order to get to the next level of learning something, I would practice it. Well, I would keep it inside of me, practicing it every single day as often as I can. So 5 to 20 times a day, I'm going to intentionally pull up my psychological boundary to practice this skill. And each time I do it, what I'm actually doing is I'm putting a new neural network in my brain. I'm offering my brain, here's a way that we can handle challenging moments with other people, disagreements with other people. And so 5 to 20 times, I'm going to practice that skill, and it'll take me about 3 to 4 weeks before it becomes what Dan calls a practice. So once you hit this next level of integrating new information, you're going to be able to pull it up a little bit quicker. It's not going to be a thing that you have to intentionally think about and remind yourself to do, like, okay, every day I'm going to do this 5 to 20 times. Instead, once it's a practice, any time that you need it, it's going to be available. It's going to be easy to access, and you can think, oh, right, psychological boundary, and pull up that image, and it's going to just be faster and easier for you. If you practice daily, not as frequently as the skill, but as often as needed, and hopefully daily, if you practice, then the next level that you would reach in about 2 to 3 months would be a state. Once you hit a state experience, you have really built in what's called like a long-term potentiation in your brain. And what's going on there is you have a neural network that is going to be in your memory long-term. It's like solid inside of you. And with state, it's so much easier to call this new practice into your being. You're able to, when I think about what it feels like for me, it's like it can come a little bit more automatically. I don't have to think about it as much. I don't have to have the daily intention of, I'm going to use my psychological boundary. And instead, when I need it, it's there. I might still have to practice it on occasion, reminding myself to do it, but the ability to use the new skill is built in now. And then the next level of learning a new skill, or whatever you're wanting to practice, is going to be about 2 to 3 years. You're going to practice being in that state place for about 2 to 3 years, and then eventually it becomes a trait. When you hit that level of being, it means that you don't have to even think about it anymore. It's automatic. It's part of your being. It's actually who you are now after you've done the practice so many times. And so let me give you an example of another skill that you might want to start building into your life. Looking in the mirror and finding things that you love about yourself. If you use that skill for 3 to 4 weeks, it's going to become a practice, which is easier for you to access and like, oh, I'm quicker at finding things I like. I'm finding fewer things that I don't like. I'm more easily able to stay with this intentional, I love my body, I want to find things about my body I love, rather than veering off in whatever direction your mind would normally go, usually criticism. And then 2 to 3 months later, it's going to become a state. Every time you look in the mirror, that part of you could be active in your brain. It's like so online that it's always there because you've practiced it enough. And then after about 2 to 3 years, that becomes a trait. And so every time you look in the mirror, you're always looking for what you love. And the criticism has shrunk that habit, that way of being with yourself, that neural network that knows how to do criticism is actually going to die away. So everything I'm talking about with the skill, practice, state, trait, this is neuroplasticity in motion. Like, this is neuroplasticity intentionally created by you. You can change your brain by doing things intentionally and consistently. And so now you have a bit of a timeline of how long would it take. And that's if you're consistent. If you're doing it inconsistently, all of those time frames will take longer. The thing that you can do to help yourself, because what I'm suggesting, it's hard. It's calorically expensive. It's a change from what you've done for probably decades. And so it's challenging. But what you can do to make it a little bit easier is each time you use the skill that you want to use, do a tiny celebration. Inwardly go, yay, I did it. Or maybe even outwardly, like jump up and down for a second. Yay, I did it. Because when you celebrate, you're actually giving yourself a reward for the little task you just did. And every single time you reward yourself, your brain goes, oh, this feels good. I should do more of it. So it's just like a little tiny hack for whenever you're trying to get a new skill online. And it's hard. And the best way you can take care of yourself and make it a little easier is to celebrate each time you do it. Give yourself a pat on the back and say, good job. I love me. Yay. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this makes sense why it's so important to practice things. Your brain does not change from just doing something one time. You could have an epiphany moment where you're like, oh God, I'm totally different. I'm going to do life in this way now because I learned something huge and new. But what actually changes your brain is then doing it over and over and over and over again. We like repetition. We are animals who learn through repetition, all of us, especially whenever it becomes behavioral orientations that you're trying to change. If I'm trying to change my behavior, I'm going to need lots of repetition. I'm going to need lots of attempts at doing something so that the old way of doing it will die and the new way of doing it will really solidify in my brain. Again, I hope this helped you. Thank you for watching. Remember to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and I will see you next time.